so that for anybody who isn't able to be here, we can send the link to them and they can view the video. We just want to, you know, try and cover all our bases and get as much information out as we can. So welcome, happy Thursday. I hope you're having a good week. I wanted to just open up with a few minutes. Does anybody want to just check in about how they're feeling? I know some of you are like fresh, like just this might be your first meeting you've ever, you know, the first stuff you've ever learned. You might have gotten an email or something, but you haven't really learned much about the program. Others of you, I think, we really are seeing a lot of registration forms from some sites, but maybe we can just take a pause for a moment and maybe a couple of you could just shout out how you're feeling. How are you feeling in your progress?
Or in the chat, if you're more of a typer.
Yeah, throw in the chat.
Well, I'm feeling a little, like I'm a little not as where we should be, but we do have someone already that should be starting with us on the 15th. We did invite him to this meeting, so hopefully maybe he'll show up. So yeah, that's where we're at. We've submitted the budget. Yeah. So.
Yes, and thank you. And I'm really, I was really excited to see that you found somebody, and it's great. And don't feel like you're, you know, somebody else posted in the chat, it's a work in progress. It is a work in progress, right? I mean, if you're feeling like you're not quite where you need to be, try to dispel that feeling from your head. Well, you know, I know you guys are trying to move forward. You got a million things going on. And so please don't try not to feel too stressed about it. Just keep plugging forward. Thanks, Maria. Thanks.
Thank you.
Tina says it's a work in progress at Chatham as well. And building the plane while flying it, for sure. And when we get to the summer, you know, maybe there'll be a pause and we can kind of, you know, there'll be a lot of retooling. I know over the summer, we're going to be doing regular meetings and planning with you directly, one-on-one with the schools. So it is a crazy time to start this program up. Totally acknowledging it.
Hey, Mike, can I share something?
Yes,
it's,
please.
Diane. Okay, so I'm feeling the same way that the last speaker shared, but I know I had a conversation with you and you said that, you know, we're all kind of trying to figure this out during remote. But the other thing I wanted to say is that myself and Angela were stretched between this meeting and the scan meeting, and I don't know how many people have both contracts, but I know that this was a little bit of a challenge for me today.
You know, that's a really important point. I was not aware of another meeting going on, but maybe internally at ASM, we need to do some coordination and make sure we're not doubling up on you guys. Which meeting was it that you said was happening at the same time?
The one with the Navigator program,
right,
with Gina and. Okay.
I will, you know, I'll reach out to all the other program folks and try and retool our schedule, because we had kind of set up this bi-weekly thing, but we didn't, truthfully, I didn't communicate it to other program managers. So that's a good note, and we'll work on that, okay? Thanks, Diane. All right, well, let's get started. And any other last thoughts as we move forward? I totally appreciate, and you know, if you have concerns about the schedule of meetings, let's talk about it too. So
it's a work in progress for us as well.
A work in progress is a work in progress for us. I think we have an agenda that, do we have a link to that? Should we do a link to that?
Yeah, I can put in the link, but I also have it in our PowerPoint.
Okay, great.
Do you want me to send the link, or do you want me to share the PowerPoint first?
Why don't you just share the PowerPoint? That's fine.
Fabulous. Can everybody see?
It's coming, it's sharing. There we go.
All right, I'm going to try really quickly to do it presentation style. And if it explodes, it's probably Mike's fault. site. Okay,
All right, that looks good.
see?
All right, so so what we want to do today is just try and help you think about a plan to make sure you're looking, down the road and got some steps in place to make sure that you can collect the data that we to share with the state. So this is, we're not going to give you specific, like a hard list of dates right now. We do have some dates in mind, but this is more to take an overview of it, and we'll share kind of a rough timeline with you today. So, so next slide. So our hope is at the conclusion of this meeting that you'll kind of see the way the data flows in the program, in the 21st century program, feel more confident about navigating the data timelines and the we're calling them containers, those places where you're gonna share the data with us, where it's gonna be stored, and where we will be able to extract the data when we need to give the report or move forward on the reporting. And then feel empowered to manage the data at your site. So that's our goal. Those are our lofty goals. We'll see how we do. After I work through this PowerPoint and all the steps, we're going to have about 10 minutes for you to meet Christine Garza. She is our local evaluator. She's taking on a huge task because we added 12 new sites this year. So we're on our side figuring out how we're going to help her manage that, make sure that we're going to get the most accurate and complete data as possible to her so she can do her job. And she's also on her side looking for other folks that will help her conduct the evaluation. And then we'll hopefully have a little time at the end for questions and forecasting next steps. All right. So 21st century has 3 major reports that are due every year. I should even say 5. So one of them is we submit data to something called the Illinois Report Card. And you might be familiar with the Illinois Report Card. It's data on schools that's housed by the Northern Illinois University. And you can go look up the school that you work at and you can see the report card on your school. And that includes survey data, student scores on tests, attendance data, information about the teachers, salaries. It was a whole bunch of stuff. And you just type in, you can just Google it. It's called Illinois Report Card. But they also are housing data about 21st century programs in Illinois, which you can't see easily on the report card, but it's the same, data management system. So we submit reports to them 3 times a year. In the fall, or for the fall, we submit usually in early spring. For the summer, which we submit in the fall, and for the spring, which we submit at the beginning of the summer, right? But 3 times a year, I have to upload that data, and it's really, accuracy at that time is really important because they synthesize those 3 periods, the summer, the fall, and the spring, into a single report that they submit to the federal government. So then there is something called the statewide survey, which I respond to in May or June. And that is a survey that covers all, like, little aspects of all the data that we've collected. So information about kind of activities that you're providing to students, information about professional development, these kind of meetings that we're having now, parent activities, student attendance. It's a broad-based survey. It also gives space for questions about challenges that we faced. And during the current COVID crisis, it's a space where we can say a lot of our data a mess because we started in the middle of the year and we started during a pandemic. So I'm sure that this survey will give me space to respond to those questions. I provide data on every single site in that survey, and it's a big lift. It's a time-consuming survey. And then the annual local evaluation. That's what Christine Garza writes. But we compile the data that she bases her evaluation on. She also will be scheduling, and I'll go into this in more detail. But she will be scheduling virtual site visits with you, and it's a cumulative evaluation. Next slide. So we just want to message you this. Planning ahead will make this possible. The only way to do it is if you plan ahead. It really, we're trying to do a better job of it. That's what these workshops are for. But you will have to get started early to make sure you can provide us the data. So when you're thinking about the data, we just want to make sure you're thinking about when these things are happening, right? So there's kind of three, we call them buckets, right? Or timelines. There's ongoing data. That's the day-to-day capturing of program activities, enrollment, and attendance, right? Because you're always going to be providing activities and you got to be kind of capturing that information every day or every week, right? So attendance, for instance, should be taken every day if possible, but at least once a week it should be recorded. It's ongoing. Periodic, these are those like the IRC data that I talked about, or getting ready for the survey at the end of the year. There's going to be points on the calendar. We're going to try and give you a heads up well in advance where we're going to need to make sure that the data is accurate and that we've got everything from you. And then at the end of the year, there's those big summations in the key areas. And I want to put a pin in this. There's a teacher survey that must be conducted every year. And you'll learn more about that, but that's really surveying teachers that teach in the regular school program about the performance of students who participate in the after-school program. So it takes some planning. Teachers, when the school year ends, tend to be busy or heading out of town. So it's important to plan ahead for that. Next. All right. So this is the ongoing collection of data. The site coordinator is really kind of the manager at the school of this, right? And it includes student registrations. We have a JOT form that collects registration information, which if you haven't seen yet, reach out to us and make sure we get it to you. It's completed by the student and hopefully by a parent signing it, and it's all automated. And we can give you access so you can see who has submitted their registration forms. CitySpan is that is like the overarching collector of all this data. We are doing trainings on CitySpan, or if you want to set up a one-on-one about it, you can. We've also created some videos which have been sent out to schools already that show some of the key processes that you'll need to do. But if that video is not working for you or you don't have it, just reach out to us and we'll do a one-on-one if we need to. And the site coordinators should be regularly updating the activity information. So let's say you have a chess club that you decide to start in March. The time to put that in the system is when it starts, not in June, right? So it should be a regular kind of maintenance process that site coordinators plan to make sure everything's up to date. And then there's also, because for many of the sites, we are actually contracting with instructors, the site coordinators needs to support that process of submitting timesheets. If you are working within the school's budget and payroll process, you can work that out with them. But there are some key elements we always need to have, which include like background check and a resume and some of those things. And you've probably seen that in the onboarding package. And then the site coordinator is constantly communicating with instructors and students. Okay, next. So periodically, you need to work to get a student information system reports and surveys of the stakeholders. Again, this is led by the site coordinator. So for some data, you're going to need to talk to the data manager at the school, who might be the registrar, might be their title, the student records officer. I don't know what their title is. And particularly if you don't already know who that person is, reach out early and get to know them and work with them to find out how they can get you reports on student data. Because at the end of the year, one of the things we look at is how well students who are in the program and attending with frequency, how they perform compared to other students in the school. We'll talk more about that later, but it is important to know who that person is and start talking to them. And then the site coordinator is also going to host visits from the external evaluator, who is Christine Garza. So yeah, now the one thing I just want to say is the surveys of stakeholders include surveys to parents, surveys to students, and surveys to the teachers at the end of the year. Someday in the future, you might want to survey partners, if you have community partners, or there might be other things in the future, but those are the fundamental ones that we need to have a plan for. And it's important to do these surveys because it helps us reflect on what's working in the program and what's not. So hopefully it's not just for reporting, it's also for our own, or for your own kind of knowledge about the impact of the program and what you could add or subtract. Next. So the year end, there's the teacher surveys. I just want to, we can't emphasize it enough. It takes a little work to get the teachers to respond sometimes, so you got to plan ahead. Let them know in advance you're going to do it. It is a digital survey, so you don't have to distribute paper to them, but it's important that the teachers complete it, not the site coordinator. And it is important that it's a subjective survey. It's how the teachers feel students are performing in their classes, but they don't take that long, I don't think. And it's like 9 or 10 questions. And we'll talk more about that in the future. I want to say we're going to try and always broadcast in advance about what dates are coming up, but sometimes there is a rapid turnaround. Sometimes it's just like that. At the end of the year, it's really important to do some data cleanup. Do we have students lingering in the system that haven't attended programs since, September in a regular year, right? Like, we just want to make sure that we're kind of maintaining data. And at the end of the year is also a time when we have to go to the school and get information. So, that relationship again is so important. Next slide. This is, we wanted you to kind of get a visual of how the data flows to us. You don't have to memorize this for sure, but I think we just wanted to present a landscape, if you will, of how that information is coming to us. None of these is something we're just collecting because it's fun to collect. All of this is stuff that we can use to look at our program and see how we're doing. It's also data that has a mandate on the other side that we need to provide. So we're not asking you to do it just for fun. So on the left-hand side of your screen, you see the city span is the sort of container of certain information. In that is where all the student information will be loaded, and then they'll be enrolled into classes there, and then the classes are attached to teachers. So a lot of this information goes into there, and that comes from registration forms for the students, activity proposals submitted by the teachers, and we did create a digital version of that for you too, and the onboarding packets that gives us information about the staff. So all of that, then you will enter that into CitySpan, and then we'll be able to run reports on the youth demographics, on the staffing in the school, and activity attendance. There is also, we're almost done with it, a tool for you to go to the registrar or records manager to collect the data from them. It'll be basically a spreadsheet. It'll list everything we need to know. So we're going to create that tool for you. You'll go to the registrar. They've got all that information in Power School or whatever student record system they use. And they'll enter the data there and share it with us. And then we'll be able to tell the story about how school attendance and performance matches up, and what kind of behavioral data, if you collect that. Not all schools do, but if you have any kind of behavioral data in a regular school year, that can be a valuable part of the story too. And then lastly, we sort of have these folders where the results from the surveys go. And we also want to encourage you to collect qualitative artifacts. Those qualitative artifacts could be photos of student projects or activities that they attended, or you know, a student testimonial, or a story about a student. Those pieces can then be shared with Christine Garza and can inform our report. And also, you know, if in the future you want to seek other funding to make your program more robust, they can tell that story too. And those are in the form of those teacher surveys, parent interest surveys, student interest surveys, and so forth. This is all that. I hope. Let's take a pause. I've been talking a lot. Does anybody have any questions so far about any of this stuff? There will be more time for questions at the end, but I think I've just given you a lot of information. Does it kind of, I know this is like a big picture kind of presentation, but is it clear? Does anybody have any questions?
If you come up with some later as well, you can put them in the chat and I will save them all for the question portion at the end. And we will definitely be sending this out for you to look at in more depth at your own pace later as well.
Yeah. All right, next slide.
All right.
So again, these slides, which you'll have again, just so you can understand the landscape. CitySpan is one of our main data containers. Student demographic information. It's important when you register students in CitySpan, we recommend right away entering all that demographic information, because then you don't have to do it later. We need it in our reports. So at some point it's got to happen. And just, I think sooner is better. But a note on activity attendance and descriptions, family and parent activities, we're trying to figure out where that stuff should be recorded, but that may go in CitySpan. We'll let you know, and we'll follow up with some emails next week about that. We're working with CitySpan to improve how parent activities are recorded there, because right now it's not very effective. But we'll circle back with more information on that. But the staffing information is really important. You just complete it's a very short list of questions about the staff when you enter their names, and that will help us run reports at the end. And once again, this is ongoing. Next slide. I kind of talked about a lot of this already. So yeah, talking to the registrar. Again, student school attendance and performance data. For non-21st century and 21st century youth, so that we can show a comparison. And the same with behavioral data. You also may go to them for grades, right? So that we can look at the grades and compare them. In fact, regarding this question for this year, we are going to send you out a survey by Monday. That's a simple survey. We're just trying to understand how your school is operating. Some schools are conducting a regular bell schedule and live attendance is taken for participation of students in class. And other schools are doing completely asynchronous learning where students are expected to view the lesson or read things and submit assignments. So probably there's like a half a dozen other models that we don't know about. So we have a survey, and if you're new to the school and you're not sure, just find a teacher or a principal or administrator you can share the survey with. But we're just trying to figure out a way that we can work with you at your school to collect some kind of performance data on the students, given that traditional terms like attendance don't really mean the same that they used to, or for this year don't mean what they meant last year, right? So you'll have a chance to explain your site's program in that survey. Shouldn't take too long, hopefully. And we just want to be able to capture something on your school. Next. And then the ASN folders, I already kind of explained this. The surveys, these qualitative artifacts, and all of this material will be used in the local evaluation. And the site coordinator is really kind of the handler of these surveys, sending them out to students and to parents and to teachers. So it helps to send them early and remind often. And then work with your instructors to collect any additional qualitative data you think would help tell the story. And I think we're nearing the end of me, but I'm going to turn this over to Christine Garza. And I think she will probably stop sharing the PowerPoint. We just wanted to provide her with a little time to tell you a little bit about herself and her process for conducting the local evaluation, and some of the hopes she has for working with you. So go ahead, Christine. Oh, but you're on mute.
Good afternoon, everyone. So first, let me say hello to all the beautiful people that I do recognize, like Ms. Van. Hey, Van. And I'm not sure if I scrolled through, so I know some of you, so it's nice to see your beautiful faces. For those of you who don't know me, I am Christine Garza. I've worked with ASN now for, I do it by my daughter's age, so 19 years. I started when she was almost 1, and she's 20 now. I worked at ASN for 7.5 years as the project director for the youth skills and service program, so with youth and foster care. And then I transitioned out of ASN, but have been working as a consultant ever since then. So I've been working with Mike in particular since the inception of the 21st Century program. I am I am also the person that does the grant writing for 21st Century. So I do the grant writing as well as the evaluation portion. So I just want to first say, before I kind of get into the nitty gritty about what the data is and what I do, I really want to thank each and every one of you for the work that you do. I was also at an alternative school. I worked at Pedro Albizu Campos High School for a while before ASN many moons ago. And so I understand the work that you do. And I want to let you all know that I am truly appreciative as just a person of the world. And also you make my job easy, and you also give me inspiration. So thank you, first and foremost. The data that I collect really, I'd like to think of it as this way. I mean, we collect data because we have to show that the program is successful. So that's really the first part of it. What I do is submit a report to the state that says this is what the program is doing, and essentially it's meeting its benchmarks, because there is very particular benchmarks that the state has that are in part based on the federal regulations and guidelines, right? But the other idea behind what we do is that it really ends up being a perpetuation of the funding cycle. So if we can show that the program is powerful, is salient, is meeting its objectives, that means that there's more opportunity to be able to continue the funding for the program and potentially grow it by bringing in other partners as well. So really it behooves everyone to really take the data process seriously, because it ultimately ends up being the potential between having the program and not having the program. That really is the bottom line. So, that's really the two things. It's one, in that we have to have the data, and two, in that it really ends up being the power base for the perpetuation of funding for the program. All of the data that we collect is important to me. We do in partnership with ASN, the quantitative data collection. So things like the attendance, the scores from standardized testing, those kinds of things, as well as what Mike mentioned, the survey work that I also do the analysis on. But the other part that I do is I do site visits. So now with the pandemic, I've been doing just virtual visits with folks, and those will be coming up in the next couple months that I'll be scheduling directly with everyone. And usually what happens at that point is I'm just there kind of hanging out. I'm in part talking to you all, just getting a feel for the program. I take time to talk to staff, I talk to students, but mostly what I do is just observe. And what I'm looking for is really just how the program just functions, how the students are interacting with each other, how they're interacting with the staff. There's no good or bad thing, it just is. And so what I end up doing as part of the evaluation process is providing recommendations based on best practices in youth development, with youth development principles, to be able to suggest ways in which the program could also be augmented and perfected, if you will. So, those are part of my role too. And that's the fun part for me, because I like the qualitative piece. I like going out into the field and seeing folks, and numbers can tell you one thing, but being in person is going to really tell you another, and you cannot capture. And for me, the beauty of the program is really just seeing how young people are engaged. I see it all the time. The numbers may not say it, but I see the growth that students are having. I see the connections that they have with staff members. I see the power that the program has in their life, and the connection they have to their peers and to the programming. So for me, it's a really wonderful opportunity to just tell the story of the program. That's really what I'm doing with this data. The data report is telling the story of the program, and the wonderful things that are happening, as well as the ways that it can be improved. So I really encourage everyone to work with Karina and Mike and the other 21st Century staff to really do, the best that you can with getting the data in. I know I've been in your shoes and many before. And so with all this stuff flying, with all the issues, it's not the priority. I get it. But at the same time, I'd like everyone to just think of the bigger picture. This really ends up being the crux of being able to continue funding. So, whatever you need to do, whatever you need from me, I am certainly available. I will share my information. You all will have it. So if anything ever comes up, you need info, questions, however I can support your program, I am here, and I'm committed to each and every one of you and each and every program to make this a successful year. So with that, I'll just say congratulations, 21st Century newbies. And, you got this. It's all good. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. And I hope it's not too blustery there by the Golden Gate.
Oh, it's fabulous.
All right. So we already have some questions in the chat that I want to respond to. But if you have any further questions, you can throw them in there, or when I pause, raise your hand or speak up and unmute. I'm going to start up here with, I think the first one that I see here is from Willie at Association House High School. He says, many of our students are on their own, and we may not have robust parent survey responses. Could we distribute parent surveys to students' communities of care, i.e. caseworkers and advocates? That is a really interesting question, because it isn't set up right now for that. But I think maybe that's a call for maybe an additional line in the survey or a separate survey, because we've already sent out the survey in one format. We might not be able to change it right now, but we could do something for those young people. I think that's an amazing idea, because I know for sure that's absolutely true about many of those kids being on their own. And, you know, I mean, there's all other kinds of questions, particularly with this remote learning, about those kids, those independent kids, and kids that have jobs. And I mean, I know it's very complicated right now. So, I think Karina and I'll look at that and see how we could do that. We can do something for sure soon, I think. Get whether it's a different survey or retooling the one you've already been sent. Great idea. Tina from Chatham says, after the submission of the surveys, the parent and the student surveys, where does the data go? It's a great question. It's a Google form, and it goes to a spreadsheet, basically, where it's stored. Though we can, and some of you maybe already have received links to those surveys, I believe, so that you can kind of look at the results and monitor how many you've received, how many results have come in. If you're not sure you received that already, or maybe you haven't, send us a note and we'll add you as a collaborator to the survey. They are all unique to each school. The surveys are unique to each school, so that, you know, it's basically like private information, right? I mean, about your responses. So you'll be able to look at it. We can add you. We can add, if there's somebody you work with, another instructor that's helping you, we could add them too. So just let us know. Any other questions that come to mind right now? And like we said, you know, when we hang up from this call, or you can always, you know, just send us a note if a question pops in your head.
I have a question.
Yes.
So when we enter attendance and everything into CitySpan, of course we haven't started yet, so I don't know how it like populates the data. But if we have our youth enroll, we're entering in that data for attendance, tracking those hours. Does CitySpan break that out for us? Or would you encourage us to create our own data spreadsheet so that we can also track hours, attendance, along with CitySpan? And I'm sorry, y'all, if I'm creating more work with my question, but I just want to know how we can see those numbers and make sure that we're tracking and doing everything appropriately.
That's an excellent question. You do not currently, and I'm going to say this because I've heard rumors that some of this data demands are going to change next year. So all of what we teach you today may be altered next year. But currently, we really only need to show the state attendance. So if somebody in CitySpan, you might have a class set up like culinary, and the time is set to run from 4 to 6 p.m. So you would just mark them present if they were there. If they left at 5 p.m., we don't currently need to record that. If it were in person, we do want you to note that they left early, and that's really more a safety issue. Like if a kid leaves at 5 instead of 6, you want to know that they left, so that if a parent calls at 6:30 and says, "Where's my kid?" you know that they left at 5:30 or whatever, right? So that does not have to go to CitySpan. We do not have to report it to the state. We don't need to show them minutes of participation, only attendance. It's kind of a binary thing, yes or no, right? If down the road we start looking at things and we're like, okay, we're having these programs that are available for 2 hours a day and kids are only there for 1, what are we doing wrong? Maybe we should assess that. Then I think it would be a low, it'd be particular to your school. Like, I want to take a closer look at that. And then I would say, go ahead and record that. But everything we need if you use CitySpan the way we teach you to set it up and stuff, it's contained in CitySpan. You can run reports that'll show attendance, so you don't need to do a separate spreadsheet.
Thank you.
And Sadika, there we have these really charming little videos that Karina and I have created that'll show you how to enroll students and set up classes and stuff like that. But really, like if you want to just reach out for one-on-one with Karina or the two of us or whatever, we will make ourselves available.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I did watch the videos. I watched them yesterday. So
They were charming, right?
they were nice. I liked it. It was like 4 minutes. I was like, yeah, I can get with this. Yeah.
Eva Terry says Karina is awesome. I couldn't agree more. I'm doing the teacher pause. What is it? Is it 6 seconds, 10 seconds? What's the rule of thumb? I don't know. Any other questions?
I just want to tell Christine that Sadika is the CCA site coordinator, and she just started yesterday. So to come in with questions like that, we got a gem. So I think she's going to make it easy. And she's already looked at the videos. I sent all that stuff that Mike and Karina sent. And she's with one part that I know, but she's been going through it trying to get it. So I think we're going to jump in running. So
Awesome. Yes.
Definitely.
Have you, Sadika, have you ever used CitySpan for another program, or have you ever?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. So it's really, once you start fiddling with it, you'll find it's pretty straightforward, but it can be overwhelming because there are a bunch of tabs and links. So definitely reach out and welcome aboard again. Any other thoughts? Willie's got his hand up, or he's waving. Oh,
when we're onboarding new instructors, should we send all of their paperwork directly to Sana, or should we send it to you, Karina?
So you can send that to me. A lot of half of the onboarding packet is compliance information, and that's something that we would need on our end anyway. Payroll stuff, I just communicate directly with Sana about that in a package. Just because, one, I just have to also take a pass to make sure I'm giving her stuff. Sometimes there's duplicates or funky stuff. So I just make sure that that's an easy process for her as well. So go ahead and send those things to me directly.
yeah, we like to get, Karina really works with it to get it all ready to go over to Sana, because Sana's got a lot on her plate, let me just say. I mean, Karina's got a lot on her plate too, but we're trying to prep the material to go over there. So.
We try to share.
All right, unless there's any last questions, again, always you can send questions over. I hope this has been helpful to you. I hope we just really today, we wanted to have a frame that you could see how the data flows, how there's sort of daily tasks. If you keep up with, it's not that overwhelming if you're kind of on top of it moving forward, or there might be crunch times where things get really difficult, right? So we just want to help you any way we can. Obviously, you are at the schools the heroes of the school, and you're also the heroes of 21st century. So, but we're just trying to support you the best way we can. But please reach out if you have any questions. We do have this schedule. I want to remind everybody of alternating weeks. So in 2 weeks from today, we will have another meetup of site coordinators. I don't know, I will probably try and keep, unless we think of something we really need to go long on, it'll probably be a 30-minute meeting. But we'll have to judge that as we move forward. We felt today really need to be a long meeting because we wanted to give you this overview. And then just in general, I forget if we have any other specifics, Karina, that we wanted to flag coming up. Just, the action item is keep doing what you're doing in terms of enrolling or registering students, in terms of onboarding staff. And, just, you've all been communicating with us great. So just keep that up. So was there anything else, Karina? I can't remember if there were other things we want to mention today.
Not that I know of. Just a reminder that Mondays we have office hours. If you have a question that pops up, Sunday morning, as you do about 21st century programs, you can go ahead on our 11 o'clock meeting. And that we're going to try and send all of these resources over to you so you can peruse in your evenings.
Yeah, and on Monday, you should be getting a link to this video, the PowerPoint, and that survey that we talked about in terms of student performance.
Now, you guys are all doing a really great job. There's a lot of information, a lot of stuff coming at you. And I personally am very impressed.
Oh, wait. Oh, here's a question from Juan. If we have a parent meeting prior to you guys setting up the forms in CitySpan, how should we record it? Great question. Yeah, regarding that, I'll just take a moment to really quick talk about that CitySpan parent event recording problem. So that right now we're working with CitySpan because if you put in a student's name and then you connect them to a parent or guardian, there's no way to take attendance for the parent or guardian without setting up a whole separate other entry for the parent. And it just seems like a lot of work to us that we don't think you should have to go through. So to one, I would say use a spreadsheet, and one of the attached things you're going to get on Monday, unless you need it sooner, is it's really not a very complicated thing. It's a spreadsheet where it just, asks for the description of the activity or the material you're sharing with the parents at a parent activity, the name of the parent who attended, and the 21st century student that parent is related to, or that guardian is with. So really the reason for that is we're supposed to show that we're having parent activities for 21st century student families. So really just a spreadsheet is fine. One, you can just use an Excel sheet to record that.
Sounds good. I got you. Thanks, Mike.
All right, great question. And we will send out basically a format for you to use, but as long as it's got those details, it doesn't have to look like what we send. All right, it's the final moments. Any other questions, thoughts? All right. We'll see you in 2 weeks for sure. I know we're going to see many of you before then, and really just reach out. And I think, I know that Latino Youth just hired a site coordinator who, and I think they were on the iPhone, I believe. So that's great that they were here. And we could set up just a CitySpan Q&A for the real newbies or anybody that's struggling with it. So if you'd be interested in that, send us a note and we can talk. We can just walk through it live with you, and maybe we can have a small group or something. So, but anything else, just reach out.
Quick question. To register the students, does it have to be tied to the programs? So if we don't have the programs in there just yet, can we start registering students or not yet?
Oh no, yeah, you can definitely start registering them.
Okay.
And I would recommend that. Yeah, I would recommend that.
Okay.
And then once they're registered, and then you set up the course, you can just get their name and you drop them into
And just add them to them. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I highly recommend that. If you've got young people already saying maybe I'm interested, get them in.
Okay.
I always think of questions as I'm leaving too, so. All right, thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye, guys.